Is that me? Being burned alive feels exactly how you'd imagine. A scorching, all-consuming agony that burrows into every inch of my body. I should be dead, but I'm not. Not exactly. I hover, weightless, watching the scene unfold beneath me. Watching her. Our Evelyn is so beautiful. Tomorrow is your birthday party. Mom bought you this dress. My mother's voice is soft, affectionate, a voice I never knew she was capable of. She holds up a shimmering dress. I've seen that dress before. My sister once boasted that it cost $10,000, more than my parents make in a month. Yet, they still bought it for her. They always found a way to meet her demands. When the fire left scars on her fingers, they scraped together the money to have them removed. But when I burned, I got nothing. Not a hospital visit. Not a touch of comfort. Not even a second glance. Because in this family, only one daughter mattered. This cramped, two-bedroom apartment was purchased for her. My parents took out a loan to move closer to a better school. One bedroom belonged to them. The other, hers. I never had one. Sis, my classmates will laugh at me if they see how small my room is. Why don't you sleep in the living room instead? I was 12. She dragged me to the couch, tossed me a blanket, and slammed the door in my face. I wanted to protest. I wanted to tell my parents, but all they said was, it's just the living room. We used to sleep under bridges, and you can't even handle this? So, I stopped complaining. I slept on that couch for 5 years. And in that time, I learned I was nothing more than a shadow in this house. Once, I was cleaning her room and accidentally brushed against her bed. My mother's voice had cracked like a whip. Your hands are filthy. Do you want to dirty my daughter's bed? My daughter, not her daughters. Just one. From that day forward, I never stepped foot in her room again. And yet, standing here, looking down at the family that ignored me in life, I still hoped, stupidly, desperately hoped, that my death would shake them, that they'd grieve me, that they'd miss me. But instead, Mom, I'm inviting my friends to celebrate my birthday at a restaurant tomorrow. My parents exchange hesitant glances. I can see the deep lines of exhaustion on their faces, the weight of financial stress. They can't afford this. They shouldn't. But then my mother smiles, soft, loving, indulgent. Of course, Evelyn, Mom won't forget your birthday. Everything's set. You'll be the most beautiful girl there. The most beautiful girl. Not a single mention of the daughter they just lost. Not a single flicker of sadness. And then, damn it, Big Sis had to die at the worst possible time. What bad luck. Bad luck. Not tragedy. Not grief. Just inconvenience. My chest clenches with something sharp, something suffocating. I was nothing to them. I had always been nothing. When I was little, I believed that even if my mother was unfair, she still loved me. That my father's beatings, his cruel words, they meant he cared. Beating is affection. Scolding is love, he used to say. So, I endured it. I remembered every lesson. I never made the same mistake twice. The neighbors praised me for being such a sensible child. And sometimes, just sometimes, my parents would smile. But as I watch my sister now, dry-eyed and unbothered by my death, I finally understand. I was never their daughter. I was never anything. Big Sis was so capable, she sighs, voice laced with insincerity, but she died in the fire. Then, as if on cue, she forces out a few fake tears. I stare at her perfect, unmarked face, at those cold, soulless eyes. A surge of hatred curls in my gut. I want to reach out. I want to rip them out. I remember now. I remember everything. I could have escaped that fire. The flames had been closing in, smoke thick in my lungs, but I had a way out. I was almost free. But then I heard my parents' voices in my head. Protect your sister, no matter what. I turned back. I found her, Evelyn, trapped in the blaze, her terrified eyes locked onto mine. I grabbed her arm and dragged her toward the exit, toward safety. We were almost there. Almost free. And then, she ripped herself away. Before I could react, she shut the door closed and locked it. I pounded against the wood, screaming her name. She didn't look back. She left me there to die. My sister, the one I had protected since childhood. And now, as I watch her calmly discussing my death over dinner, I wonder, had she ever loved me at all? Had they? That dead girl, my mother says dismissively, scooping soup into my sister's bowl. If she were still alive, she could have earned at least $3,000 a month. We could have used that money to buy you nice clothes. They weren't mourning me. They weren't even sad. I was nothing more than lost income. Something sharp twists inside me. I think back to all the ways they had stolen from me. All the things I had given up, convinced it was my duty as a daughter, as a sister. When I finished middle school, I begged to continue my education, but my parents refused. You're stupid anyway, they said, and you already repeated a year. But that wasn't my fault. They had made me repeat a year so I could stay in the same class as my sister. She's still young, they told me. We don't want to leave her alone in elementary school. Stay with her, protect her. And like an idiot, I agreed. I let my parents rob me of my future. I let them take away my chance to learn, to grow, to be more than a shadow. We were struggling financially back then. I did everything. Tutored my sister, cooked, cleaned, helped with the farm work. And because of that, my grades slipped. I begged for tutoring. I wanted a chance to catch up, but my parents scoffed. The school already teaches you everything. If you're not learning there, why waste money on extra classes? And yet, when she struggled, they didn't hesitate. They spent money on her tutoring, paid for her dance lessons, sent her to piano classes. She became refined. I remained a simple country girl, but despite it all, I worked hard. I fought for my education. And finally, I became the top student in my class. For once, I thought they'd be proud of me. I held up my award, heart pounding, waiting for their approval, waiting for them to say, well done, sweetheart. We're proud of you. Instead, they turned to her. Don't worry, darling, my mother soothed, stroking her hair. Your sister is only good at studying, but you have talents, dance, piano. Your grades will catch up soon. They dismissed my success like it was nothing, as if being smart, being capable, wasn't enough. It was never enough, because no matter what I did, I would never be their daughter. Not like her. It's such a shame your sister died. My father sighed, pouring himself another drink. I had already arranged a good marriage for her. We could have started preparing for the wedding next month. What a waste. My mother agreed, stirring her soup. I'll ask around about a ghost marriage. Maybe we can still make some money off her. A ghost marriage. They were planning to sell my dead body off to a stranger. Even in death, they still saw me as nothing more than a transaction. The realization settled over me like a thick layer of ice. I was never their daughter. I was currency. And now that I was gone, they were were desperate to squeeze every last bit of value out of my corpse. Tomorrow was Evelyn's birthday party. She slept soundly, curled up in her bed, looking peaceful, unbothered, alive. I sat on the edge of her bed, staring at her. I was no longer human. I didn't know why I hadn't disappeared. Maybe it was unfinished business, or maybe it was pure, unfiltered hatred that tethered me here. I wasn't sure yet, but I had time to figure it out. If nothing else, I could learn how to make her suffer. I reached out, trailing cold fingers over her cheek. She shivered in her sleep. A notification lit up her phone on the bedside table. I glanced at the screen. The message was from an unknown number. I frowned. Who was Evelyn supposed to give money to? Was she in debt? Or was she paying someone off? My mind spun with possibilities, but before I could process them, my mother entered the room. She pulled the blanket up over Evelyn's shoulders, tucking her in with careful hands. A soft, loving gesture, the kind I had never received. I remembered all those nights I slept on the cold, hard sofa, my body trembling from the chill. No one had ever come to cover me with a blanket. I watched her move, hovering near the ceiling, unseen. Is the air conditioner too low? She mumbled, rubbing her arms. I smirked. No, mother, that's just me. The next morning, I witnessed something I hadn't seen in years. A real home-cooked breakfast. The table was filled with steaming dishes, both Asian and Western. My mother bustled around the kitchen, her movements fluid, almost graceful. I never knew she could cook like this. When had she learned? Then, it hit me. She had to, because after I was gone, after I was sent away to work, there was no one left to cook for Evelyn. She must have struggled at first, forcing herself to get better, to take care of her precious youngest daughter, the daughter that mattered. I watched as Evelyn stretched, rubbing sleep from her eyes before skipping over to the kitchen. Mom, your cooking is delicious, she beamed. I love eating the food you make. My mother smiled warmly, reaching up to smooth her hair. The scene before me was perfect. A cozy home, a warm meal, a loving family. Anyone would envy this life. And for a fleeting moment, I wondered, was it my fault? Had I been too cold, too quiet, too difficult to love? Had I pushed them away? Had I done something wrong? I thought back to the younger version of myself, desperate for affection. I remembered standing in this very kitchen, eager to help, eager to please. I remembered the way my mother had shoved me aside, irritated. Don't bother me. You annoy me just by being here. That was when I learned the truth. I was only welcome if I was doing something for Evelyn. That was the only way to earn their approval. And even then, it was never enough. I wanted to leave the suffocating house, to get as far away as possible. But whenever I moved more than 10 meters from Evelyn, I was pulled right back. Like a leash, like a curse, like I still belonged to her.